Okay, so we are about to talk about some real fun things today, short sales and foreclosures. Something that I think can sound really scary for people. Maybe one of the things you were most nervous about or worried about when you got into the real estate business is how to deal with these kinds of wacky things. One of these really wacky things that happen in the real estate business. So I'm going to try to break it down for you a little bit and explain what the differences are, what to look out for, what you should be watching for overall. In terms of the differences, the nuances between the two states, Maryland and Pennsylvania, I am going to be focusing primarily on Pennsylvania forms and Pennsylvania processes. So if you are a Maryland person on the call, just make sure that you're reaching back out to your manager following this to find out what special documents or contract addenda that you might need in these different situations, okay? All right, so of course you can certainly take notes. There is a slide deck that I'm going to be referencing. I will send it out to all of the participants immediately following this, so you don't have to be too afraid that you're not catching everything. I'll get it all out to you afterwards. Okay, let's get going here. And if you have questions or want more clarification, just stop me. All right, let's talk. I want to begin with foreclosures. Because I think foreclosures are actually considerably easier than what most people think when they hear the word. And I want to clarify a lot of the confusion around foreclosures and your ability as a real estate agent, what your position can be, how you can help, how you find them. I think there's a lot of concern about like what your role is when it comes to foreclosures. And that conversation really begins with how a home is foreclosed. Like, what is a foreclosure? So let's kind of work through that first. A property goes into foreclosure when owners stop making their mortgage payments. I think most people know that, but it doesn't happen immediately. Usually the banks will allow for like one, two, and then a third missed payment. And it's at that point then that the bank is able to file what's called a notice of demand. Sometimes it's also called like a 90-day something, it just flew out of my head. But there's like this 90-day notice of demand. And basically saying that we at this point can begin the judicial foreclosure process. Now, whether they do or not is another story entirely, but it does notify the seller that at this point, you're 3 months behind and we can go after the house now and foreclose. It does allow for provisions to be caught up again, usually about 30 days. If you can get yourself caught up, then we're good. But typically that's unfortunately not the case. What happens next is that it is scheduled for a sheriff's sale, or sometimes referred to as a sheriff's auction. The sheriff's sale is scheduled, notices are taped to the property. It's usually about this time that the public, the general public, becomes aware of the fact that this home is in foreclosure, because you've seen them. You drive by the houses, there's all this like paper like slapped all over the windows and the doors, and it's usually your first indicator that this house is in foreclosure. It's also at this time where clients or customers are going to start reaching out to you and saying, hey, there's this house, I drive by it, I see all these papers taped to the wall. So how can you help me to go see it? How can you help me purchase it? So we're going to be talking about whether they can at this point or not. The public auction is scheduled by the county, and each county has a different timetable for how they do the different schedules and how often they do them. So it would be up to you to reach out to the county courthouse to find out. It's also a matter of public record, so you would be able to search for the next available public auction or sheriff's sale to see when that's going to be. And you can even attend some of them yourself. I do strongly suggest at least witnessing and being there and seeing what a sheriff's sale actually looks like or who goes to them. The thing for you guys to understand is that they are not listed at this time. Okay, they are not real estate listed. So you will not find them in the MLS. And when clients call you and say, hey, I'm seeing this house, it's foreclosed, can you show it to me? No, you can't, because we are real estate agents. And so we can show you houses that are listed by other real estate agents or that the sellers have given us access, like a for sale by owner situation, new construction or something like that. But at this particular time, it is not real estate listed, and it's not really something that you can get in the middle of. It's a public sale. And any kind of auction like that, that's a public sale auction, is not something that agents are involved in typically. Now, at that point, right up until the moment of the sheriff's sale, the homeowner does have the opportunity to pay all the missed payments and all the lovely delinquency fees that they've been stacking against them this whole entire time until there is a sheriff's sale to stop the foreclosure, right up until the time the auction actually happens. But once the sale is complete, the bank owns the property outright. Okay. Normally, you guys will see this in the MLS when you open up the public records. You might see that a transfer was made and it's usually only for like a couple of $1,000s. That's usually just like the tax payoff that the bank would have to pay to catch the home up. But because the home itself is collateral, they're not like paying for all of their own fees or their own mortgage. Are you with me? It's the mortgage was with the bank. They don't pay for that. So it's just whatever outstanding delinquency fees or taxes that are due. Okay, so the bank now owns the house. Okay, here's the kicker. The bank is the person who gets to decide when or if they make this property available for purchase. So here is where your clients are like, there's papers all over it. I want to be able to go and see it. Can you contact the bank? Is it listed or whatever? And I try to stress to you guys to understand the bank owns it. They decide when it gets listed. They decide if it gets listed. And we're talking about it can sometimes sit like that for years before they decide to list it. Okay, I need you to know that. It can sometimes be years before they decide to list it. Recently, they had even kind of put a stop or a hold on doing any kind of serious foreclosure or putting people into foreclosure because of the whole COVID thing. So while we may start seeing a resurgence of that and releasing that back out into the market, for a long time we hadn't. And previous to that, banks really kind of controlled how many foreclosures would end up on the market at any specific time. You have to understand, it's not on their priority list to deal with the foreclosures because at that point they're winterized and they can just sit. Okay, so it's really about like when, and there's not a concern about it sitting on the books, I guess. Okay. So once they decide to make the property available for purchase, they actually have kind of like a contracted list of brokers and agents that they go to and use to list it into the MLS. Any questions about that so far? Okay. So where do you find foreclosures? Sometimes you guys are asked to buy a list, right? Or your clients want to know where they can get the foreclosure list, or you get emails or whatever offering to pay for a foreclosure list. There is no need to do that. Okay, that anything that is listed as a foreclosure and is available for purchase can be found in the MLS. You have access to that because they actually list them with real estate agents. They are in the MLS. There's no need for a list. That list is really just like the sheriff's sale list, which you already have free public access to. And you can even go so far as to find yourself on sites like Zillow, people who are behind in their mortgage payments are in danger of getting foreclosed. Zillow has a tag they use for that called pre-foreclosure. I'm going to talk about that. Okay. But homes that are foreclosed have been through the sheriff's sale process, but not yet listed, are pretty much unavailable for a consumer purchase. Okay, and you may get somebody who's going to be like, well, can you just call like Bank of America and tell them I've got cash and I'm going to buy it? You can try, but you are extremely unlikely to connect. It is going to be unsuccessful. It's not on their radar. It's not in the plans. And it really doesn't matter to them that you have a buyer that has cash, because when they do decide to release it to the market, there'll be another buyer that has cash or potentially multiples. Do y'all understand that? It's not an emotional game for them. So it doesn't matter. None of it matters. Your clients, however, need to understand that. So what is a pre-foreclosure? This is fun. Because Zillow has this tag that they use on their listing or on the homes that they reflect on their site, and it's called pre-foreclosure. So your consumers can see this. Zillow is a public site. So what they'll do is they'll take the MLS listings that you send to them, but they're still going to be out there playing around on Zillow, and they will screenshot these and send them to you and say, hey, this one's in foreclosure. Can you go show it to me? Pre-foreclosure is not a real thing. Okay, it does not mean that it is listed. This is a Zillowism, and it literally just means that it's flagged because this person is either in the foreclosure process because some kind of judicial thing has happened and that's a matter of public record that Zillow has access to, or that they are behind in their mortgage payments and in danger of foreclosure. Are you with me on that? Okay, this is not a sale. So you can't just go knock on that person's door and be like, hey, I see you're in foreclosure. I've got a buyer for you. That they may not even realize themselves, but it is 100% not for sale, and that would be an extremely unprofessional thing to do. So it's just indicating that the owner is behind, and so they get flagged. Okay, so you got to educate your consumer that those are not actual listings. Okay, questions about that? Now, sometimes this can be a useful strategy or tool for prospecting for listings if you want to try and maybe like get in front of those people in some way and offer to list their property to get it sold before it goes fully into foreclosure or sheriff's sale. But that's a careful game you got to play. Okay. So listing a foreclosure. Well, this is a very short and simple slide because typically most agents, nearly every agent, will never list a foreclosure. As I said, those are contracted out to specific brokers and then contracted out to very specific agents who have a history with listing those foreclosures. It's a broker supplied list. And the thing is, it's not a lucrative business for you to be in. It's actually incredibly time consuming and very, very expensive in terms of out of pocket costs to the agent with no guarantee that you would get that back substantially. Okay, so it would really need to be a situation where you were turning and burning a lot of these to make it valuable to you, and it's really hard work. The listing agent is actually required to coordinate and pay for maintenance. They have to do photos, and I think they have to do photos like once a week or something and turn it into the bank, just I guess to make sure it's still standing, not vandalized. So frequent photographic evidence, they have to do the photos for the listing and just keep the bank updated throughout the process. The other thing is that the listing agent really has no power or negotiation or anything when it's really just like a means to an end and they're just facilitating paperwork. Okay. And then if you were to be a listing agent of a foreclosure at some point in your career, any specific instructions should be listed in the MLS remarks for other people. Okay, so unlikely you would ever be, unlikely you'd ever want to be. More realistically, though, you will be selling foreclosures. Okay, you're going to have clients who are interested in flips or they want to do a little elbow grease for themselves or whatever it is. The main difference between a foreclosure purchase and a regular purchase is that it is typically an online bid. You're not actually completing or sending in a sales contract or agreement of sale. It's usually directing you to some kind of online site where you would need to do an auction type bid. The listing agent is typically not involved in the process. Okay, so you can't like sweet talk or schmooze or really even sometimes get a whole lot of like helpful, viable information because they themselves may not have that information to give you. Okay, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult, but they don't accept offers themselves. They don't negotiate with the bank. They're literally paper pushing, just facilitating. I get your offer. I see that you did an online bid. As far as I know, the bank is going to look at it on such and such a day. That's the best I can tell you. Okay. Now, with VA foreclosures specifically, VA has its own sales agreement. So when they send you to go do it online, if you get accepted, they will respond back to you with their own sales agreement, which is actually incredibly short and very simple. So in that way, the last time I did a VA foreclosure, I was like, oh, this is great. But it's pretty simple and straightforward. With FHA foreclosures, however, they use a specific website for all FHA foreclosures, and it's called thehudhomestore.com. I do suggest that you guys go and create your accounts on hudhomestore.com as soon as possible so that you are ready and agile and able to help with clients when they say that they want to make an offer on some kind of FHA foreclosure. The key for you guys to understand is that you have to go in there and renew your account on every license renewal year, okay, because you will technically have expired because it's going to ask you for your license number and your license expiration date, And then once you've hit that expiration date, you're finished on their site, you'll have to go back and do it again. Okay. I do actually like the HUDHomestore.com. Most of the time when you're buying a foreclosure, you're buying totally blind. No clue. The bank doesn't know anything about the house. There's no property disclosure. They've never been there. There's really not a lot of information at all. So what I like about FHA is that they do give a property report, where it's just like, and we're not talking about like the best of the best information, but it does give a little bit of a baseline on the major mechanicals. So they air test the plumbing, they check to see if the HVAC is working, like that kind of stuff. And though at least you'll have some kind of idea, like how bad is bad and how good is good. And you just don't get that with anything else. So I do like HUD Home Store. When you set your account up, go play in it, look to see what kind of FHA foreclosures are around you, and just see like what the listings look like. Okay. FHA ones specifically really, really want owner-occupied properties. Even sometimes the Freddie Mac ones will have specific time frames where it should be owner-occupant offers only. And it will make that clear on the online bid that owner-occupants are from this date to this date, and they're going to look at the offers on here. And if there are no offers or whatever, then we'll open it up to investors. It is critically important that your investors don't lie about this, because you will have to have them sign an affidavit that they do intend to be owner occupied if they're putting in an offer during that owner occupied period. And you have to sign it too. So you are equally liable. Okay. So don't have that shady investor be like, oh, well, we'll just pretend I'm living. Not on my license, buddy. Okay.
Do they have to move in right away, Steph, or do they have like a period of time where they can fix it up before they move in?
There is a period of time. I can't recall it off. Don't hold me to gospel on it, but I think it's like a 90-day time period, a 60 to 90-day time period where they need to move in.
Okay.
And then also during that time frame, even when it is like the investor period, I know for FHA specifically, if the investor picks it up, they are not allowed to resell it until the 91st day. Okay, and that's going to be important for you guys, not just as not really so much from the listing agent perspective, but like when you're representing a client and they see an FHA foreclosure, you have to have the conversation with them, like, how fast are you planning on flipping this? Because we can't sell it again to another FHA buyer, especially until that 91st day. So the timing has to be right on the relist. Does that make sense? Okay. Good question. Thank you. All right, so view the MLS remarks for specific instructions from the listing agent, and I'm going to demo for you. Sometimes that's almost next to nothing, and sometimes you get a lot, okay? So the ones that are next to nothing can be tough. All instructions that are given to you by the listing agent or the bank have to be followed exactly as instructed. I'm telling you guys, there's no playing here. The listing agent does not have any say or ability to fudge or negotiate anything on your behalf. So if you don't do exactly what the bank wants, exactly the way they say it, you won't get accepted. It's that simple. Okay. It's not like a regular sale. There's no pleading or negotiating. It is what it is. Okay. The banks review the offers on a predetermined time frame. And just like with a regular seller, they can accept, reject, or counter, just like everything else. Market conditions do definitely impact the decision-making process. Okay. There was a time many, many, many years ago where consumers could go look for foreclosures and they could do real major lowball deals. Everybody knew it. You're probably still hearing it. I'm going to get a foreclosure. I'm going to offer them next to nothing. I'll get a great return on my investment. But here's the thing. The banks have gotten very wise over the years and have realized and started making use of the market and the way that it works. There are multiple offers in the foreclosure world now as well. So doing the real lowball offers is not likely to get accepted anymore, and is kind of a waste of everybody's time. And you don't know how many other offers you are up against. The listing agent wouldn't know either. Okay, so it's totally blind. In terms of the time frame, what I want you guys to understand about that, I like to joke about it a little bit, but it's not wrong. If I see, I'm gonna use like easy numbers. If I see a $100,000 foreclosure And my investor is like, I'm willing to give them 80. Okay, that seems reasonable enough. And there even may not be any other offers, but here comes your person with 80. Here's the thing. The bank has a number that they have decided is their drop dead number. This is how much I need to make net right now as we have it listed. 80 isn't it. Okay, maybe for them it's like 90, 95, but here comes your person with 80. Okay, then all of a sudden, so they'll get rejected. All of a sudden, you'll notice the next month comes along and they've dropped the price to 95. Okay, your person comes along and says, well, I'll do 80. Rejected again. Still doesn't sell. Because remember, I told you the bank doesn't care how long it sits on the market. Okay, so they have a predetermined price drop, usually. So then let's say all of a sudden it comes to 85. Okay, and now your person's like, well, I offered them 80, let's do 80 again, still doesn't take it. And then all of a sudden you'll see 1 month they drop down to like 70. And your person's like, what the heck? I could have given them 80 like months ago, right? But it wasn't in their timetable and it didn't matter to them. Yes, occasionally you do get lucky. Yes, you can do a low ball offer and sometimes it will get accepted, but you also have to understand that they have a bottom line and they're usually testing the market to see if they can get it. Okay, and they have a timetable for that. Any other questions about this before we move on? Okay. And here's the thing. Once you are under contract, so I do the online bid. Usually as part of that online bid, I also have to upload some type of agreement of sale. Not always, but usually. Okay. Once the bank has reviewed all of the offers and you are picked, woohoo, congratulations, right? Here's the thing. You got to be ready and your people have to be ready because here again, the bank's like, I'm calling the shots here and you need to jump. They say jump, you say how high. Okay. So when you get accepted, they will usually give you an extremely small time frame to fill out a ton of extra paperwork and to get it all signed and sent back. And they expect you to close usually within 30 days. Bam. This is your settlement date because you don't get to pick it. Okay. Here's your settlement date. It's going to be 30 days from now. I need all of these documents completed by your buyer and returned to me usually within 24 hours. If you're lucky, they'll give you 48. Okay. Which means if you've got buyers that are like, nah, I work late, I'll get, you'll lose it. Okay, you will lose it. So everybody has to be on notice. If we get it, you respond. We go fast. Okay.
I have a question. Yeah, I
No,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. So, I saw many foreclosure, they required like a deposit to make the offer.
Mm-hmm. Not usually to make the offer, but they require the deposit immediately once you're ratified. Like it's also a very small.
But when they say that you are accepted.
Yes. Usually when you're accepted, but you're right, there are some that actually do require that a check be sent to the listing agent with. So you have to make sure that you're reading the instructions very carefully. And usually, just so you know, guys, the earnest money check that's expected is larger than what we typically do with a standard agreement, with a normal agreement of sale. I like to just use 10% as like my overall expectation because sometimes it will tell you it has to be 10% and sometimes it doesn't say anything at all. And I'm actually going to show it to you. It just says a minimum EMD is required, but then you'll never hear back from the listing agent on what that is. So my general rule of thumb is to just go high and be safe rather than go too low and then have them say, no, you didn't send enough money and you're out. Does that make sense? But 10% can sometimes be a lot for a person. Okay, thanks for that, Josie. You're right.
Question.
Yeah.
And they typically don't have any problem. Say, for instance, if I have a family that wants to get a home, then they will be paying the commission for the buyer, bringing the buyer to the table.
Yes, they do pay full commission. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. They're fully aware. They do pay a commission. It's usually not the commission that we're expecting. It's usually like the buyer agent side is 2.5%, but we're used to seeing that from a lot
I
of
have seen like a 1%.
Yeah, sometimes it's ugly and it's 1%, especially with the auctions. Yep. Yep. So pay attention to that. And if it is like real bad, like a 1%, in those cases, you may have to go to your buyer and say, this is a lot of work and I'm going to need you to make up the difference. But You got to be careful what you do for one, you do for all. Okay. But really, it's just like working with another seller. Like once you have been accepted, it's all the same. It moves really quickly. Inspections are permitted, but it's just for your consumer's information. Repairs are not offered. Okay, the bank will not give credits. They will not make repairs. Okay. Now, they may consider doing closing cost assistance. So if you have, now again, this is going to be market specific because remember, there's multiple offers on banks foreclosures as there are with anything else. But there was a time where it wasn't as hot as it is now, and it was the same for the foreclosure. So like I remember I could write offers that were a little bit of a low ball that asked for closing cost assistance. The main thing is that the bank is only concerned about the net purchase price that you're offering. So it doesn't matter how it happens. They just want to know like what is the actual bottom line money that you are giving to me. So you can ask for closing cost assistance and it would tell you if you couldn't. One thing you do need to be cautious of is that your buyers do have to pay both sides of the transfer tax in Pennsylvania. Okay, the buyer's agent needs to change the sales agreement accordingly. That section that says that the buyer and seller will split it needs to be adjusted to say the buyer will pay full transfer tax. Okay. As foreclosures are usually in a state of disrepair, it is extremely unlikely that you will get government financing on these properties. Does it mean that you never can? No. But if your person is coming to you with an FHA, a standard FHA or USDA or VA loan and saying, I want to buy a foreclosure, you have to find out how realistic that's going to be because you have to remember your consumers are watching things like HGTV and they're thinking, oh, well, I don't mind doing a little bit of elbow grease and fixing homes up myself. But then they go off and they get this like low money down government loan. Those two things don't match up because the lender is going to say no. Okay, the house is in too bad of a shape. It needs too much work. We won't put a loan on that. Okay. Typically, cash purchasers and conventional loan purchasers are the way to go. You will sometimes see that there will be foreclosure listings that offer like a first-time buyer, rehab type loan, a 203B, things like that. There were 203Ks. Freddie Mac has its own version of that. You'll see it. I'm going to show it to you in the listings where it will say that you can do these rehab loans or you can get FHA financing, but what it really means is that it's a rehab loan and it does actually have additional costs to your buyer that they may not be able to do. And the other thing is they're not allowed to do the work themselves. So it usually doesn't work out for that kind of person. Okay. Additional addenda is likely to be signed. So like I said, they're going to send you a big old chunk of paperwork. They're going to give you almost no time to get it done. Sometimes it even needs a broker signature, so your manager needs to be ready also in the event that they might have pages they need to sign. Okay. Bottom line, bank is only concerned with the bottom line. Save your tears and the stories and the information about your client for someone else. They don't care. Okay, it's just all about how much money they're going to make in the deal. Okay, I'm trying to get it off the books at the highest possible price. This is also how your cash buyer doesn't make a difference. Okay, so I do want to make that clear too. Sometimes you'll get clients that'll be like, well, I'm cash and I'm going to close really fast, and neither one of those things matter to the bank. They're going to tell you when to close anyway, and in terms of like how they get their money, it doesn't matter. They just want highest net. Okay. Having fun yet? So let me show you what some of these foreclosures look like in Bright. There's 3 of them here. Forgive me, these are really, really old, but they're my go-to ones. So just want to show you. So this one was like way back when. The way that you can tell that it is a foreclosure is usually that you see words like HUD. So this one in particular is a HUD home store one. And here's where you see this like FHA, $100 down, sales incentive or whatever. Red flag there, you got to be careful because you are unlikely to be able to use standard FHA financing, but HUD Home Store tries to get people in who are owner occupants. So they have these like special rehab loan programs or whatever. You can certainly do it. You just need to make sure that you and your client understands what they are and what it means. Okay, but it is typically FHA 203B insured with escrow financing. And what that basically means is that they can finance the improvements into the home. It's like a 203K situation. and it just needs like a higher closing cost insurance, which is why it says insured with escrow financing. They have to have enough cash to be pulling from to make the corrections. Okay. Let me see what else is in here. Let's see, additional information and training on this information is here. It will tell you where to do the bid. So in this, and it also says before you start your bid, you have 15 minutes to complete it. So don't walk away and go to the bathroom. Okay, you'll have to start all over again. So there's that problem. Let me see if there's anything else special about this one. Buyer pays all transfer costs. Somewhere in here it would tell you to go to HUD Home Store. Oh, right in the beginning. Submit your bids at HUDHomestore.com. In this case, the EMD has to be a cashier's check, but it does not tell you how much it should be. Okay? And the way that you know is that the sale type says HUD owned. Sometimes you'll also see it as REO, real estate owned. So that's one. Let me show you the next one. That one had decent instructions. This one is a little bit different. There is a minimum EMD. It doesn't tell you how much it is. Okay, it tells you there's a minimum, gives you nothing else. Okay, good luck reaching out to the agent. It does say it has to be the cashier's check. Again, buyer pays all transfer costs. This is the FNMA. This is a Freddie Mac. So that's their first look program, allowing owner occupants the first opportunity. And then after that, it gets listed for investors. So that would be on day 21. You see that? Sometimes it doesn't tell you here. It'll tell you like on the website that you go to, but it's nice when it's here. Okay. And then somewhere in here is the actual, oh, here we go. Now this is additional details. It always confuses me. There's always the additional details. Oh, here we go. All offers submitted to propoffers.com. A lot of foreclosures use propoffers.com. Okay. Now in this case, the commission paid to you is 2.5% minus $175. So you get charged some kind of tech fee. So be aware of that. Okay. And then this one, the sale type was REO. Okay, that's usually how you know. And the last one looks like this. I like to show you this one because it has almost no information at all. Okay, so here you go. All offers need to go to this particular website. There is, where did it say that? A technology fee is going to be applied to the buyer's agent, but it does not tell you how much it's going to be. So you are going to have to pay some kind of tech fee out of your commission, but you're not told what it is. Okay, so not a lot to go on there. It doesn't say anything about the EMD, doesn't say anything about how, so you're kind of on your own.
I have a question. So this fee is paid like before to the bid or when it's accepted? When is this technology fee paid?
At settlement as part of the final costs. So it would come out of your commission.
So it's a non-prior, like
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. Okay, so that's kind of it for the short sale portion. Do you have any other questions about the short sale before we move on? I'm sorry, foreclosure, before we move on to short sale. Okay. Other things that I want to talk to you guys about in terms of the foreclosures and how to adjust your paperwork for it is that, like I said, because the transfer tax is paid to both sides, is paid only by the buyer, you need to make sure you change that particular section of the agreement of sale. Other than that, there's very little changes that would actually be needed to make, other than the fact that they would want you to upload it. Usually, excuse me, you have to double check it to make sure like and follow all the instructions, but most of the time they want it wet signed and not electronically signed. I don't know if that's changed recently, you know, post-COVID and with those kinds of allowances being more frequent or not, but historically it's been wet signed documents only uploaded. Okay. It's a good question. I'll have to follow up on that as we're embarking on a new world here. All right. Now, the more complicated thing is the short sale. Okay, and most people don't realize that. We all think this one's the easy one. Sounds so fun, sounds really easy. It's not. The foreclosure is much preferred. all the drama's over. It's just for sale, right? And it just happens to be the bank that owns it. This one sometimes can come with a lot of drama. What is a short sale? So a short sale is a little bit different. We're not at foreclosure level yet, okay? The homeowner is distressed. The homeowner is behind in payments. There may even be a judicial process in play right now headed towards foreclosure, okay? But for the most part, they're either distressed and they're behind in their payments, or what you'll find is that the market is distressed and the home that they purchased is underwater. Have you heard that term before? They owe more for the property than what you can sell it for. Okay, so now they're like, well, how am I going to get out of here without owing? I don't have that kind of money to pay off the bank the rest of the amount because I can't sell it for that much. That's kind of where I think what we're going to see in these upcoming years is that problem more so than people being distressed and not able to afford it, but potentially not. Okay, in this case, it's a little convoluted because the owner still owns the home. Okay. The buyer is your third party, is your person, okay? But the decision maker is the bank. Okay, so the seller is still the seller. They still own the property. They are likely to sign the agreement of sale that you turned in with your offer, but they are not the ultimate decision maker. It's the bank that is. And all the proceeds from the sale go to the lender. Okay, the seller is actually not allowed to profit on the short sale at all. Otherwise, they should not be short selling. Do you understand? Okay. If you make a profit, then there's no reason why you would have short sailed. So the seller actually needs permission from the lender to sell the property for less than the amount owed. This is really important for you guys as listing agents to understand that just because they're upside down doesn't inherently mean that they can or that the bank will accept less for the property. So there has to be a permission given by the bank to do that. Sometimes that permission isn't given until you're halfway down the line, okay? Like you almost need to like ask for permission after you've already done it, if that makes sense. Okay, so but here's the thing. This process takes oftentimes a really, really long time. Paperwork has to be turned in, documentation has to be turned in by the seller, has to be considered by the lender, and so that process can take months or even years. A short sale is not a short sale, okay? Now, during the time that we had the massive bubble burst, market fell apart back in 2008, 2009, and in those couple of those like 5 years or so following, there were so many short sales and foreclosures that departments were created for that purpose. Okay, so if you were familiar back at that time, it was the bulk of the market. That's what it was. Like, you know, your options were short sales and foreclosures when you were going to buy a house. It had flooded the market. Because of that, the banks had to have like entire people dedicated to this process, and things did end up moving a little bit faster because they had people dedicated to it. But do you think that they needed those people anymore in these last several years since that time? No. So it is possible that short sales are going to take forever again because there are no like dedicated manned departments for this anymore. The banks have moved on from that. So now it's going to land on somebody's desk and sit there and wait until somebody has the time and attention to give it. Are y'all with me there? So it is why I'm going to suggest to you guys, if you're in that position, that you do use a short sale negotiator on your team to help you get it done. Okay. The sellers may not be allowed to make repairs. They may not be allowed to offer credits because, again, if you have the money to do that kind of stuff, then you shouldn't be short selling. Okay, so the bank is going to be very critical about where the expenditures are going. Seller assistance with the closing costs for the buyers may be allowed, but it is likely limited. I'm going to show you some of those. It will not be a full 6% almost ever. Okay. Now, here's the other problem too, that the sellers themselves may be very cooperative, and other times they are not cooperative at all. You have to remember this is an incredibly emotional process for the homeowners. Most of the time, they're in this position not because they wanted to be, but because like bad things happen. Okay? I have seen short sales where people have had like terminal cancer, some kind of illness, extreme medical problems, like the primary breadwinner has been incarcerated, and they're just, I mean, like bad things happening to really good people. And so because of that, they may just not be in the emotional place to be cooperative. Are y'all with me there? So I don't like to hear buyer agents really like disparaging the sellers in a lot of ways because you don't know what they're dealing with. Okay, and we don't want to toy around with it either. And just sometimes it is just for no reason, just to be difficult, but it's not always the case. Okay. But their cooperation is what can affect the length of time too. If you have somebody who's really engaged and wants to get out of it before it goes to foreclosure, it's going to move along a lot faster than somebody who's just like, I don't even care anymore. Let the bank take it. It's over. You know what I mean? So like that can change things. Okay. So when you are listing a short sale, you typically first become aware of it because the client will either tell you themselves that they're in trouble and they're underwater or they can't afford their mortgage and they're behind in their payments. But usually this happens because they know that they need to get out from it and they'll call you and say, hey, can you come do a CMA? And then you show up. And this is why I push you guys so hard to do the seller net sheet. So you yourself can sometimes be like, uh-oh, we got a problem here. Because if I'm trying to sell it for this, and then after all the costs, and this is how much mortgage you have left to pay, and now all of a sudden, like, I have to tell you, you have to bring money to the table, my conversation with you is now going to be different. We might need to go down a short sale route, or maybe you need to rent this out for a year, or like whatever it is, but like, I can't get you out of here with profit. Does that make sense? Okay, in 2013, I sold a home where I got the guy out with $2,700. That was his profit. Okay, we are like not there. It hasn't been, it's been years since we were in that position where we were just skirting people out with nothing, or they had to bring money, or they were breaking even. You guys really aren't used to that kind of market, but you have to get ready to have those tough conversations with people. Okay. The short sale negotiator is going to be a really good resource for you. Okay, especially as a newer agent, but if you're just not, if you don't have a lot of history with short sales, I really just recommend that you hire out the negotiator. That actually is paid by the buyer. So it's not something that comes out of your pocket as the listing agent. It does not come out of the pocket of the seller. They're extremely familiar with all the creditor's requirements and processes, and they're the ones that can really coach your people as to how to make it so that the bank will accept their short sale request. Okay. They will also help you to determine whether or not this is even an option. If you don't hire a third-party negotiator, you yourself, as the listing agent, will have to take on the responsibility of communicating with, negotiating with, mediating paperwork between the seller and the bank. And that is not fun. Okay, and it's not really our wheelhouse. So unless you have mad skills with that, it's probably not the best way to handle it. I suggest the negotiator. You list the house as per the comps. Okay. A lot of consumers are like, oh, a short sale is a great deal, right? Not really. It just means that like the price of the house is what today's market is. It just doesn't match what they owe. It's not always meaning that it's like priced significantly under market value. So keep that in mind. You comp the house just like you comp any other house and you list it for what you can. Okay. That's what you send to the bank for consideration with the offers as they come in. As the listing agent, you can only have one offer at a time in front of the bank, which is different than the foreclosure. The foreclosure acts like anything else, multiple offers, multiple views. But with short sale, it's a little bit different. Once one person has turned it in, the expectation is that the seller should accept it because they are in trouble and they need to take the offer. So at that point, the seller signs it and your MLS status gets updated to active under contract. Okay, still marketing because the bank wants you to continue to collect offers. You just can't pit them against each other. Does that make sense? One offer at a time. Other offers then have to be submitted as backup offers. There's specific backup language that needs to go into those contracts that says, I recognize I'm in a backup position and I have to wait for offer number one to get rolled out before they even so much as entertain mine. Okay. Now, when you're on the buy side, that's like a little bit different too. This requires a lot of coaching and hand-holding from your buyers. There are additional documents that would be necessary. There would be a short sale addendum to your sales contract. And the third-party negotiator is also going to have a package of addenda that needs to go into the either into the MLS that you pulled out of it that your buyer would need to sign and have to turn in with the offer. Okay, I'll show you those two. Timelines need to be discussed. How are we going to deal with inspections when you don't yet have the house? We don't know when you're going to have the house. How are we going to deal with the mortgage application deadlines, the title ordering, the earnest money deposit, all these different things. There may even be additional expenses to the buyer. If the lister is doing a third-party negotiator, that cost is typically either 1% of the purchase price or a flat $4,000 fee, although those may have gone up in recent years. Okay. Short sales that are in the MLS as active under contract can only accept backup offers, so they will not even be opened or looked at or considered by the bank until the first offer has been worked through and completed or terminated. Okay. So the process is you'll complete all the paperwork, you'll have your buyers sign. The listing agent presents the offer to the seller and the seller signs. You are technically executed, but remember, it is not approved for sale until the creditor says so. Okay. The listing agent will then send that package to the negotiator or directly to the bank. And then at that point, the bank decides if they and any other additional creditors will accept the lesser amount. Now, here's the thing. There could be a lot of different hands in here. Like these people might have taken out their original mortgage, they might have a second mortgage, they might have a home equity line of credit, they might have more mortgage insurance premiums that they're paying on a mortgage insurance product. There could be like 4 creditors or more involved. There might be liens, there might be judgments, like all kinds of stuff. Okay, so all of these different entities have to decide that they're okay with taking the loss, and that can take time. Okay, the formal execution date is not until you have heard from the bank, yes, we accept your offer. So there's a limbo. All right, so let me show you what the short sales look like comparatively. All right, so we've got 2 of them here I'm going to show you because in my area we have 2 short sale negotiators. I think it's kind of across most of the areas. If you're not sure who your short sale negotiators are in your area, ask your manager, they will know. Okay, so this one way back when was considered a short sale. Normally I can tell that because hopefully they have put it either into the agent or public remarks that it is a short sale, but they don't always. Most of the time it's down here under the sale type where it says short sale. That's how I would know. Okay. Now this will also tell you that in this case, there is a 1.5% loss mitigation fee paid by the buyer. That's the third-party negotiator. Okay, that's the cost to the buyer for the use of the negotiator. And it's a $2,500 minimum. It does refer you to the associated docs, so I am going to show you what this company's documents look like. Under the Bright docs, this particular company is called My Closing. So they will have it in the listing. You need to make sure you go open it up and you have to read this word for word and understand it so you can explain it to your buyer. In this case, the first thing that jumps out to me is this. Maximum allowable seller concession is 3%. There's your seller assist cap, no more than 3%. And the buyer has to prove the need for it. You can't just ask, okay? Other things that will tell you that you have to provide these things with your offer, and that in your short sale addendum and the agreement of sale, you know where we have like in Pennsylvania, we have a written acceptance date. When it expires, it needs to be no less than 90 days. That's how long. That's what you have to coach your people. We're in this. You have to give it the time. This is not the kind of thing where we write an offer and we're like, well, if we don't hear back from the bank in a week, we're out, then don't do it. Then it's not even worth our time. Okay. There's also here, see attached deed restriction sheet. So they're going to give you some information about deed restrictions. I'm going to sort of spin down here for a second to get to the important things. I mean, it's all important, but you know what I mean. You want to read all of these things and understand them and make sure that your buyer understands. Okay. This is the backup offer disclosure, just letting people know that if there is already an offer and it says active under contract or active pending, that everything else is a backup offer and they have to sign off on that. And then you have to actually use this language right here in the additional terms, that this offer is contingent on the termination of existing agreements of sale. Here's the deed restriction, same thing as with the foreclosure. There is a 90-day grace period. Wait a second here. Okay, so this cannot be sold for any price as of 30 days of the deed, but then even after that, you can't sell it for more than 120% until after 90 days from the date of the deed. So they're trying to avoid people coming in and flipping it too fast. Okay. This is the short sale addendum to the agreement of sale. It needs to be initiated by the seller side. And the reason why it is important is because when you write a contract, we are contractually already saying, I'm going to do inspections on this time frame from execution. I'm going to make my mortgage application in this time frame from execution. But the problem is, what is execution in short sale, right? So when the seller signs, that's technically executed, but you don't want to do inspections on a house unless you know you're having it, right? So this is where the addendum helps to clarify, when are you actually going to do your mortgage application? When are you actually going to do your inspection? As it says in the agreement of sale, or are you going to wait within so many days of the creditor's acceptance? Okay, and that's a conversation you have to have with your clients. When do they want to do it? Also, line 32 goes over that 90-day, that if it's taking so long and we have not heard from the creditor by this date, then we can terminate and move on, but it can't be any less than 90 days according to what was said earlier in these documents. Okay, so that's that company. The next one is a different company. I want to show you that one. Okay, so here again, you can tell that it's a short sale because now in the agent remarks, it just says negotiated by ABBA loss mitigation. Okay, and it tells you that it's short sale processing information here. Okay, in this case, flat 4,000. Okay, now again, these are older listings. Those fees may have increased. So if you see new short sales, that might be different. Okay, and again, down here, sale type, short sale. This company's paperwork is a little bit different. Okay, so the short sale disclosures are here. ABBAs are a little bit shorter. Again, it tries to explain to people how the short sale process works, that the seller's not going to receive any cash from this transaction. Your buyer needs to know that. More disclosures, that tells what the fee is. Offer instructions are here, and they have to do a letter of intent for this one. Buyer has to be prepared to settle within 30 days from when, and that's the problem, is that you're just waiting forever for the creditor to say, yes, you can have it. And then as soon as they say that, you got 30 days to get to the settlement table. Like, you got to be ready. Okay, they're not going to answer you fast, but you're going to have to be ready to jump when they do. Okay. This also has language for backup contract that would need to go into the sale. And in this case, it wasn't included, so you would need to include the short sale addendum. Okay, if it's a short sale, it needs the short sale addendum. Maryland has a version as well. Okay, any questions about that? Questions at all between the difference between short sale and foreclosure? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, James.
You primarily would only be representing the buyer, is that correct?
Not necessarily. With short sales, you could be in a listing situation, especially as we're moving forward in these years when people were buying really high and the market isn't necessarily increasing anymore. When they go to sell, they may be slightly underwater. So you may find yourself as a listing agent faced with a seller who needs to short sale, and then you would need to call in the help of a short sale negotiator to get yourself there. But for the most part, if you're working with buyers, yes, you would be doing this from the buyer perspective. Okay. Now here's the thing about the short sale, because it's a sensitive point for me, only because, like, when you've been in the business as long as we have and you've experienced this with your clients, You have to remember that the short sale and the foreclosure process may be happening at the same time, in tandem with each other. It's a race. Okay, so I like to think of it as two trains on two separate tracks, and they both get going at the same time because seller is missing payments or they're underwater or something bad is happening. But it is possible that short sale and foreclosure trains both started going at the same time. Now, I don't know about you, but any kind of government or bank situation, the left hand is not talking to the right hand. Okay, the two trains are not communicating with each other. So they're just going, right? Your buyers have to be coached on commitment when it comes to the short sale process. Too many of them think it's like a foreclosure. Well, I'll make the offer and then I can bounce out and just be like, oh, I found something better. I don't want this anymore. This is a labor of love. You need to be willing to stick with it until its bitter end to know if you can get this house. If you're not going to be committed, this is not the right path for you. Okay. The reason, yeah.
So it could happen that is a short sale and then we don't know that actually the foreclosure procedure started. So.
Right. So that's the good thing of having the short sale negotiator be part of it, because they will know that the foreclosure process has started and they'll be actively trying to work with the bank to stop it. So that's what happens. Short sale listing goes on, foreclosure is in process, and then let's say here comes Kira with her buyer and they make an offer. Okay. The short sale negotiator is going to be like, oh, thank God. Okay, we've got a buyer. So they're going to go and say, foreclosure, stop. Okay, we're good, stop. We have an offer. But if Kira's people are just like, oh, whatever, I want to go find something else and get something that's faster, and the bank's not responding, and they bail out, the foreclosure train is still moving, and short sale has to start all over. Does that make sense? So like it really like can damage the seller's ability to actually get out and sell without punishment and without the foreclosure process if you have buyers who are jumping in and out all the time and not actually having any intention of making the purchase. Now you can't shoulder that responsibility, but I want y'all to understand that those things can be happening at the same time, and it's not a game to play with buyers who aren't serious about the house. Does that make sense? Okay.
If you're working with a buyer who wants the deal per se of like a short sale or foreclosure, but they don't want the long time, like you should definitely tell them to stay clear of short sale.
I would. I mean, it's not doing anybody. Yeah, it's not foreclosures. Yes, because foreclosures are pretty quick. They go online. It's usually like a week or two or something before they're actually looking at the offers, and like then you're closing in 30 days. It's a very quick process. But with short sales, because there's no like enforceable time frame to hear back from the creditor, then like that would have to be a conversation with my buyer, is that there's a lot of like misunderstanding and miseducation about what a short sale is. Let me explain it to you. And then if you're still interested, we can move forward. But don't just do it because they're like, oh, I want a short sale. They might not know what they're asking for. Does that make sense? They probably don't know what they're asking for. It's just the same thing as anything else. It just comes with a whole lot of extra delay and uncertainty, and they just have to be willing to sit it out. When my kids were young, I used to go to sit at the soccer tournaments with them, and there was a girl there that I got to talking to, and she had made an offer on a short sale. It took 2 years. It took 2 years to close. Okay, they need to be ready for the long haul. But she's like, I loved that house. I was willing to wait. I was willing to wait for it. So, but so like, as I said, typically though, especially without a short sale negotiator, those short sale and foreclosure trains are running simultaneously. They do not communicate. Those departments don't talk to each other. Okay, so they won't know. Foreclosure won't know you have an offer. Offer won't, potentially might not know that you're in foreclosure. And if the short sale deal falls apart, they have to find a new buyer. But meanwhile, that judicial process is still going. Okay. So I said in the beginning, are short sales and foreclosures good deals? Maybe. It could be. Okay, but it's not the way that consumers are expecting it, where they're like, oh, well, we can just, offer half the price. That's unlikely. That the bank is going to accept it in a foreclosure. Definitely unlikely that the short sale creditor is going to accept something that low. But then that ties it up while you're waiting to hear the no.
So if they are at the same time, like supposing you do an offer that is a short sale, but it got in a foreclosure at the same time, they didn't communicate, the buyer can change and buy the house to foreclosure?
If you become aware of it or the listing agent becomes aware of it and they see that it's in sheriff's sale. Obviously, the seller would probably know. A lot of that depends on communication and proper research and investigation. If you see that it's up for sheriff's sale, you can usually try really hard to contact the bank and say, I have an offer, it's here, like we're under contract. Can you delay the sheriff's sale? And sometimes you can get them to delay it.
If they don't do, can the buyer still buy through foreclosure?
No, because then at that point, it's gone into a sheriff's auction. It has a new seller, to the bank. The bank
Okay.
themselves. Now, it's better for the bank to have a short sale offer because they're probably going to get more money for it than what they would go through with the whole process of having it sit on the books or whatever. But because they're not communicating with each other that way, unless you tell them I have this offer, delay it, they wouldn't know. Like the foreclosure department is just completely separate from like the mortgage department who would be negotiating that short sale offer with you. Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
The home HUD home store,
Mhm.
is there a place for agents or just a regular, just private citizen signing?
Yes, the HUD home store by itself is consumer facing. So to some degree, you can get some information as a consumer, but you do need to sign up and create an account as a real estate professional, which gives you more access and the ability to submit offers.
Okay.
I will include the instructions for that as well, because you will need to have an NAID number to include with that, and you need to have your license number and all that stuff too.
Would that be a better place for buyers, like to send buyers to look for foreclosures instead of Zillow, since Zillow can be kind of confusing with the pre-foreclosure
That's
notation?
a really great question. If my consumers want information on foreclosures, they really should come through me, through Bright, because I can send you, like all the
Yeah.
ones that I showed you, they were all foreclosed listings. I can send you the listings. You can whatever information you have. With the HUD home store one, absolutely, yes, that would be a really good place. And sometimes if they don't have access, I'll download the property condition report that I was referencing and I'll send that to them and say, here's what it looks like. At least they have something. But yeah, anytime that they can come through you, through the MLS, is better than going to Zillow. And really coaching your people that pre-foreclosure is not a saleable property. So don't ask. I can't help you. Yeah. Anything else? I hope that was helpful. I wasn't intending for it to be scary. I just want to make sure you guys are really clear about what they are, what to do, what not to do. And like I said, we're here. The coaches are here for you. Your managers are there for you to help out when you find yourself in those situations. But foreclosures are fairly easy. Just the short sale, you have to be prepared sometimes for a long haul. Yep. Okay. Thank y'all for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon.